Good afternoon here on this Monday. In this video, we're doing Overreaction Monday. I seen a billion comments from Lions fans, and we're going to go over it. Is it an overreaction? Is it not an overreaction? A lot of people calling for firings. Jared Goff is terrible. All of this. So we're going to go through a lot of it and give you my thoughts on this situation. I think this video should be a little bit comforting for you guys. But let's just go ahead and get this thing going. The Lions had a terrible game yesterday versus the Baltimore Ravens. The Lions got whooped on all fronts. Coaching, special teams, offense, defense, and nothing was working right in that game. It was an F game, a terrible game. It reminded me of last year's Carolina Panthers game where just everything that could go wrong did go wrong. It was one of those type of deals. And the Lions got curb stomped, 38-6. And so while the game was going on, in my comment section on LNU as well as on my personal channel on Chat Sports there, and after the fact of today, I was in the comment section of 97 Won the Ticket. I'm listening to a lot, and I'm seeing Lions fans' reactions here to what's going on. So I'm going to give you my thoughts on this, and I'm seeing a ton. So we're just going to go through it here on this. First off, I've seen a lot of fans saying that Dan Campbell needs to be fired. This is an extreme overreaction. Firing Dan Campbell after having a 38-6 loss, considering the fact that the Lions are 5-2, and last year they went on their big win streak, is a complete overreaction. Folks, it's one game. It's one bad game. Do you really want to fire Dan Campbell after turning this franchise around, going 5-2 this year? By the way, the Lions are leading the NFC North by 3 games. Is ridiculous. It is utterly ridiculous. I don't know if you know, but he's the leading candidate for Coach of the Year right now. I think a ton of teams would love to have Dan Campbell as their head coach right now. Josh McDaniels for the Raiders. Do you think that you would like to have him? I mean, you could go through all these coaches right now and say, nah. Folks, it's one game for Dan Campbell. Yes, we got blown out. Yes, it was terrible. But you just can't have one game and say, well, he needs to be fired now and dismiss all the wins that we've had. You can't do that. You have to account for everything for a head coach, not just one single game. We've seen many times where great coaches throughout the past have had bad games, yet they don't get fired. So I think that's an extreme overreaction. A lot of people saying fire Aaron Glenn. I think this is an overreaction right now. What I've been saying about Aaron Glenn here is you got to take it game by game right now. He doesn't have a consistency of being extremely hot like a Ben Johnson, where if Ben Johnson has a bad game, you say, you know what, it's just a bad game, because his track record is so much better, right? He's had a lot of great games, and in this past game, it wasn't a great game, and no one's saying fire Ben Johnson. It's a little bit different, though, with their Glenn, because last year was terrible, and now this is the second game this year where he's had a bad track record. I'm not saying fire Aaron Glenn at all. I do think it's an overreaction right now. But at the same time, I think we got to go game by game when it comes to Aaron Glenn and how he operates as DC, because his track record is not as good. But I do think it's an overreaction to fire him. I don't think you fire him right now. I think that's overreaction. Give him this season, and we'll see from there, right? If it continues to where he has a bad game, or if he just stomps the yard with people, folks, then you don't, it's not a big worry. It was more of an aberration, of something that doesn't happen a lot. But we have seen it with Seattle earlier this year, and we've seen it last year where there were some bad games in this year. But it's an overreaction right now. Don't fire Aaron Glenn at all. This team got beat on all fronts, and everybody had a bad. It's not just like, oh, Aaron Glenn, he's the whole reason. No, you could say everybody had a bad game. The offense, the players, the offensive line, the offense, Ben Johnson, Dan Campbell, special teams. I mean, it was just everything went wrong in yesterday's game. Overreaction here. Jared Goff is a terrible quarterback. we need a new quarterback immediately. Folks, before this game, Jared Goff is considered an MVP candidate. It's an overreaction. I don't even really think he had the worst game that you would consider. Considering the fact that every possession the defense had, or defense for the Lions was giving up a touchdown, at some point you can't really effectively do your offense. You're going to have to at some point just kind of be like, man, I have to throw the football pretty much everywhere to make big plays. That's what happens when, teams get on you. That's why I always say, like, the Lions offense, if you can get ahead of, say, the Carolina Panthers, then you really negate what they do offensively. They're going to have to pass the football, thus resulting in bad plays and interceptions and forcing the ball. So, aberration, right? I want to say aberration. That's a complete overreaction. Say Jared Goff is terrible and dismiss everything that he's done the last 2.5 years over one game. Overreaction. Another one I've been hearing about is the Lions must get another edge rusher. I don't think that's an overreaction. I think this is something that we've seen so far throughout the year, and it was really amplified in this game. This is a consistency. I think Aiden Hutchinson's fine, but we need to get another player opposite of him that can get after the pass rusher on a consistent basis. Romeo and Julian Okwara, they're rotational pieces, but we need a guy who's on the field a lot. Okay, I think that's really, really important. I do believe the Lions need to make some phone calls, maybe a Danielle Hunter, who I've been talking about, or if you can attempt to get a Chase Young, someone opposite of this guy, right? We need to have somebody out there to put consistent pressure on there. This is something that we've seen now 2 years straight, and it was really amplified in this game. If you're trying to be a legit contender in the NFL, you got to have another bookend edge rusher. You do. You absolutely need another bookend end rush. So I don't think that's an overreaction at all. I think that's a good reaction, in all honesty. Another overreaction is the Lions need help in the secondary because Jerry Jacobs didn't play. I don't think that's an overreaction. Again, I think, look, if you're to lose a Cam Sutton right now, oh my God. I mean, and he didn't even play well. I mean, everybody didn't play well, but you could just see the drop-off, a significant drop-off. And that's more of the injury concerns, right? Because we have lost so many people, like Emmanuel Mosley and Kirby Joseph went down in this game. And having Will Harris as a number 2 corner is not something you want to see out there at all. So I think that's not an overreaction. Do I think they go get a guy? I don't think they get like a Patrick Surtain. Maybe they get a guy that's a depth player where it's not a big deal, but at the same time, you can see the fall off. It was a big fall off, and the Lions need to make sure that this fall off doesn't happen. Another really overreaction, I'm tired of hearing this, I think it's ridiculous, is the only reason the Lions beat the Kansas City Chiefs is Travis Kelce was out, Jones was out, and they dropped footballs. That's the reason the Detroit Lions beat the Kansas City Chiefs. First off, that's ridiculous. NFL is a game of inches. Okay, how many times can you say, well, if. Okay, if the Lions got the coin toss, the Lions maybe 6-1 by beating the Seattle Seahawks. Well, it didn't happen. The Lions lost the game. They lost it. If, right? If Emmanuel Mosley stayed healthy, well, we could have better. Sorry. Doesn't happen. The NFL's a game of inches. A lot of games are decided by just a handful of plays in the National Football League. Okay? So the Lions beat the Kansas City Chiefs. Well, they had injuries. Folks, where's the excuses for the Lions' victories here? The Lions have won 5 games. And this is throughout the season. The Lions have C.J. Gardner-Johnson, injured, out. Emmanuel Mosley, injured, out. Throughout the defensive line, we've had Isaiah Buggs miss a couple games, right? We've had injuries to Julian Okwara, Joshua Pascal. Jerry Jacobs didn't play. We have lost Taylor Decker in games. Jonah Jackson, Halapoulivaati Vaitai. Most of our back-end running back rooms. Jahmyr Gibbs. Craig Reynolds was injured. You've had David Montgomery. You've had wide receivers like Amon-Ra St. Brown out. Folks, there's no excuses for the injury front. Where's the excuses there for all of our players whom it seems like half the team is out? There's no excuses. You have to have depth on your football team. You don't have depth, you're not a good football team. So the Lions beat the Kansas City Chiefs because we don't get our asterisk. I've seen a ton of that today. Well, the only reason they beat them is this, this, and this. Okay, well, where's the reason that we won these games without all of these players? You can't have it both ways. You cannot have it both ways. You just can't. That's the whole point in building depth on your football team, is because you're going to have injuries. And that's just the name of the game. If we would have lost last week and we didn't have St. Brown or the game before, can we say, well, it was an asterisk because St. Brown didn't play? It's an asterisk because Joshua Pascal didn't play. It's an asterisk because, well, we didn't have a good offensive line. No, I can guarantee you that's not the case. I can guarantee you we would get ripped for that losses. It's National Football League. How many times have I been preaching on my channel for 5 years to have depth because injuries occur? That's the name of the game. Another overreaction is the Lions are the same old Lions. Because we got destroyed in one game. Okay, we got destroyed last year in one game in the Carolina Panthers, and we turned around and just kept winning afterwards. Okay, it's not the same old Lions to be 5-2. And we're heavy favorites versus the Raiders next week. Right now, 7.5-point favorites. So if the Lions win, how can you're 6-2? Is it well? No, it's not well. You're 6-2. You are what your record says you are. Right now we're 5-2. That's our record. We got beat. There's no excuses for the loss. We got destroyed. But there's also no excuses to be 5 wins. You're 5 wins. You are what your record says you are. It is what it is, man. So the Lions are a good football team. We got decimated. Now look, if the Lions lose next week Monday, okay, now we got something to talk about, right? All right, now that's a consecutive 2 losses. And if we lose after that, we lose to the Chargers. Okay, now it's a little bit different. Right now we're all getting a little bit irritated and frustrated. But that's not the case right now. It's 1 loss. We're 5-2. That's what we are. We're head of the NFC North by 3 games. I seen today, the Lions are going to be a wild card team. They're not going to win the NFC North. Have you not watched the Green Bay Packers? We beat them, and they just lost to the Denver Broncos. Have you not watched the Minnesota Vikings? Have you not watched the Chicago Bears? They're bad. They're bad teams. The Lions are a good team with an easy schedule now. The Lions going to win the NFC North. It would have to be an extreme fall off the cliff. And it would have to be the Lions consistently lose and these teams consistently win for something like that to occur. Is it out of the realm of possibility? No, I'm not going to say there's a 0% chance on anything. But I have a 99% chance that the Detroit Lions win the NFC North. Like, it's really set up for that. So come on, guys. Look, it's one game. It's one horrible, bad game. I'm not going to give an excuse for the game because it was terrible. But I'm also not going to give the excuse that the Lions are 5-2 right now. You can't just look at one game and dismiss every other game that we played. Can't do that. That's unfair to this part of the National Football League. A lot of teams lost. Hell, the Bills lost to the New England Patriots. The New England Patriots, whom is one of the worst teams in the NFL. And Bills are I wouldn't say they're a juggernaut, but they're a good team. It happens. Guess what? The Falcons beat the Buccaneers. I mean, the Chicago Bears defeated the Vegas Raiders. Like, it's the National Football League. Things like this happens. Hell, I mean, the Cardinals beat the Dallas Cowboys. It's just how the NFL works. It's going to happen. And it sucks when it happens to be on that losing end. And you got to drink water and drive on. If you're the Lions coaches and players, don't make this consistent. Learn from your mistakes and go out there and beat the Raiders down. Then go to the bye and get a break. I think they need a break. I think we all need a break, man. It's the Lions bye week can't come fast enough. But let me know your thoughts. Do you think that's Are you one of those fans where all this stuff is not an overreaction? Let me know in the comments below. With that said, folks, adios.